Hello friends, my name is Nikhil. Welcome to my channel Salesforce Musketeer. In today's video, we are going to learn about SAML Flow in Salesforce. So let's get started. What is SAML? SAML stands for Security Assertion Markup Language. It is a protocol that enables single sign-on between applications. It's an authentication protocol. We can log in into Salesforce by entering username and password in third-party system. So basically, there's a third-party application. It could be Oracle, .NET, database, Okta, where you have your username and credentials stored, and you provide your username and password there, and it will say, okay, this is a right person. The person has been authenticated, and then you can log in into your Salesforce system. So SAML can be used to create user account with just-in-time provisioning. So for example, if your Salesforce you enter a domain of your Salesforce, it redirects you to a third-party application where you enter username and password. And suppose your Salesforce system doesn't have your username stored in it, then just-in-time provisioning will create a user account for you in Salesforce automatically from third-party system. Some of the key points that we need to understand here is one, in SAML we have one identity provider and one service provider. So identity provider is an application or database which is holding your username and password or credential information. It provides an authentication service. So basically, when you enter username and password, then identity provider say whether it's a right username or password, whether it's a genuine user or not. Service provider is an application which you want to use. So for example, if it's an identity provider initiated flow, then in some big companies you will just go to a company website where you provide a username and password of your company, and then that once that application is opened, then there might be a Salesforce icon which you click on it, then it will automatically open Salesforce org for you. You don't have to re-enter username and password. And in that identity provider application, there might be many other applications, not just Salesforce. It could be Oracle, your other timesheet, NetSuite, and there could be Chronos. So all that application will not ask you to re-enter username and password, as you have already entered username and password in identity provider. So before we go further, we need to really understand what is the meaning of SAML assertion. SAML assertion is a message that is exchanged between identity provider and service provider that confidentially identify who a user is, what pertinent information exists about them, and what they are authorized or entitled to access. So what it means is that the message will be exchanged between identity provider where you enter username and password, and between the service provider, the application that you intend to use. That tells whether the user is a genuine user or not. Now in service provider initiated flow, what happens, user enter custom domain in a browser. For example, I have a logistic company ABC, then I will enter abclogistic.salesforce.com. So, so it will redirect me to the IDP login page. One thing to note here is that the custom domain, setting up a custom domain for your Salesforce system is a mandate step for SSO to work. If you don't have a custom domain, your SSO will not work. That is the first step. That's why the user will always have a custom domain URL in a browser, and that domain will send a SAML request to IDP or third party application. Then user will enter username and password. If they are that password and username are good, then that SAML assertion, which is a message that tells who the user is, will be sent back to Salesforce. Once SAML assertion is coming back, then based on the setting you have done, a service provider Salesforce will validate the assertion and see if there's no error. How will it validate? It will have its own certificate to validate the incoming SAML assertion in Salesforce. In demo, we will see how we will set up this single sign-on settings. Now let's go with the another flow, which is IDP initiated flow. It's very simple. If you see what I did, I just removed two lines. First here and second here. I just removed it and it becomes IDP initiated flow. So what it tells, instead of entering a custom domain of Salesforce in your URL, you directly enter IDP application URL in your browser. Once you log in, then you can see maybe your IDP landing page, the first page you see may have a multiple applications, and then when you enter any application, you will go to that application and you don't have to re-enter any username and password. That's how the user experience is from the front. But in back end, what will happen when user enters a credential, then same SAML assertion will be generated and it will be sent to Salesforce where it will be validated. So let's see how many steps we need to set up SSO. Only 3 steps. It's very easy. When you start, it will look difficult, but if you summarize all the configuration you do for setting up SSO, it's only 3. Step 1, you need to go to IDP. Let's say assume that we are trying to connect Salesforce org A with Salesforce org B. Salesforce org A is a IDP where username and password will be authenticated. Now the org B is a service provider. So in order to set up SSO, we need only 3 steps. One, we need to set up IDP settings at IDP provider. Second, we need to set up single sign-on setting and service provider. Third, we need to set up connected app at IDP. That's it. In our demo, we will see how we can do these 3 things. But before doing these 3 things, as I said, custom domain must be set up for your Salesforce org. So let's jump into demo. In this demo, I'm going to use 2 org. The one with the red theme, consider this as a Salesforce org A, which is an IDP, and the second is with the blue theme, it's my Salesforce org B, which will be used as a service provider. So the first thing we need to check here is that the custom domain is enabled or not. One thing you can check from here that it's not login.salesforce, so it means my custom domain is set up. We can also confirm it from here. If you see, my domain name is different, so which is enabled. So this is the first case, and even in my org B, I have my custom domain set up. I can verify here. Here also I have my domain set up. So the prerequisite is already done. Now, as this is my identity provider and setup, I'll simply write identity provider. It's very simple. So you will not see it like this. Let me just disable it so that I show exactly what you will see when you are doing it for the first time. You will see it like this, where you will see this button, enable identity provider. You have to click on it, and then you can use the certificates here, but I will use a new certificate, and first I will give a name like demo cert and click on save. So we have created a certificate. Now I'll go back to identity provider, click on enable identity provider, and I'll choose the certificate which I just created. Very simple. Only few clicks and I'm able to create this org as an identity provider. Or now if you see that I have this, some URLs have been generated which we might be using it for configuration. All we need to do once you do here is click on these 2 buttons, download certificate and download metadata, and these 2 things got saved in my local system. Now I will go to my service provider and I will click on setup. Here I will click on single sign on settings. As I said, step 2. Here I will see we already have one single sign-on setting by Trailhead because I never log into my org B. As from Trailhead Playground, I just click launch button, so it happens because of this. Now if you don't have this, you have to click on edit and enable your SAML enabled. and one is this SAML assertion validator. I will tell you about this. This is very important because sometimes you will get stuck into error when you're doing SAML assertion, you're not able to log in, then this will come handy. Now here I will choose new from metadata file. The metadata file is the same file which we downloaded in here. The same file, you need to upload it back here. So I will click on new. I'll restart. So I'll click on new from metadata file, and here I will choose demo SSO and the metadata. I will click on create, and if you see, it has automatically filled the information from that metadata. So here if you see, it asks for identity provider certificate. If you remember, we have also uploaded second file, which is the certificate. I will also upload this one. If you notice all these fields which are auto populated, this is my org A information. It's an org A custom domain. So this is an issuer. Entity ID is the same URL, which is a service provider URL. And if you say requesting sign-in certificate, you can create one certificate, and once we will add a certificate here once we click on save. So SAML identity type, this is very important. This can be asked in interview also. So what are the different identity types of SAML? So one is username identity type, which means that two systems will be connected through the unique username, or they can be connected together through federation ID. So on user object, we have a field called federation ID. If org A has federation ID, let's say ABCD, then that has to be unique and same as in the org B. And the third is it contains the user ID from the user object. So these three fields determine how will you determine that there are two users that are same in two different orgs, based on either username or federation ID or user ID. So I'll go with the federation ID here. So SAML identity location. So where is that identity will be saved in SAML? It can be in the subject. So SAML, which means a message. So in that message, do you want that SAML identity in the subject or in the attribute? You can provide the attribute name here. So to make it simple, I'll just choose the name identifier. Here it can be HTTP post, request binding. How do you want to do it? I'll choose HTTP post here, and I think that is it. I'll click on, I'm not going with user provisioning. If you remember, just in time. So it means if user is not created in Salesforce org, so create it. So I'll just not choose this, and I'll click on save. So that is it. Step 2 has been done here, and if you see the self-signed certificate has been used here, I can use my own or I can use the one which is automatically created. I'll click it here to show you that certificate. I can even download the certificate, and then I will go back. Now we will move towards the step 3, which is creating a connected app in org A. Now in this org A, which is also called as identity provider org, I will go to connected app. Here I will click on new connected app. I'll say Trailhead org 1 Raccoon. This is a contact email. If Salesforce wants to reach out to me, they will reach out to me here, and I will choose enable SAML here. Now what's that entity ID? Entity ID, I'll get it from here. This is my entity ID. ACS URL, I will keep the same. I'll choose yes, enable single logout. So where will I get the logout information? I'll get the logout information from here. I'm getting this from single sign-on setting, all these details. I'll choose HTTP post. Subject type, if you remember, SAML identity type we chose as a federation ID, so we will keep it consistent. I will choose this. Name ID format, I'll choose this default name ID format, unspecified. And issuer is my current org, and here IDP certificate. So what IDP certificate, I have to use the same certificate which I have used here. If you remember, I provided the certificate here. Let me show you. I provided the identity certificate here, this one, and same one I will use it here. It has to be matched. Now verify request signature. Now what certificate you have to provide here? It's the same certificate which we have downloaded from here, self-signed certificate. So basically, if you see on SAML, very important thing to remember here is on SAML single sign-on, we have two certificates, one from identity provider and one its own certificate for signing. Similarly, on connected app, we have two certificates, one IDP certificate and one is the certificate from the single provider. So on both sides, we have two certificates, one from identity provider, one from the service provider. I've uploaded this certificate from the same certificate which I downloaded from here, service provider. Now I will go here and see if any other information I need to give. I think I will just choose this. And here I will choose full access. I think that is it. Anything else? I'm just checking. I'll choose no. Then I will just click on save. Once click on save, I clicked on manage, and then if you see here, all user may self-authorize. I'll change this to pre-authorized, and then I will choose click on save, and I will give system admin as my profile. Save it. So I think that is it. I'll just go to app manager here and go trailhead this, the one which we created. I'll click on edit. Everything looks good. I'll just click on save. One important thing, start URL. We can also give start URL as this one, and let's click on save. Now I'll just check if this works or not by going to app manager or by clicking on manage. And here if you see IDP initiated login URL, you can verify if this is working or not by clicking on here. And if you see here, there's a single sign-on error. So it means something was not working. So how can we fix this? So if you remember, we have done all the settings. Before we jump into see what is the issue, one important thing which we have not done yet is setting up federation ID of a user at both sides, at IDP side and as on the service provider side. So let me quickly go to my username and see what is the federation ID we have given here. Check federation. So federation ID, I can give anything. It just doesn't have to be email. It can also be or like this or number or something, alpha character. I'll click on save. Similarly, I'll go here and go to my username. Here I will check federation ID. Now let me verify that this thing works or not. So for that I will again go to App Manager. Here I will click on View, and I'll click on Manage. Here I'll click on this link. So if you see, after providing Federation ID, I'm able to successfully go from this org to this org easily, right? So we saw how we are able to do it using clicking on View, and then we are able to go to Manage, and then we are able to go to our service provider by clicking on this link. But this doesn't look user friendly. So what other option we can have is I can directly go in App Launcher and just type in this name Trailhead org, and then from here I can log in. So for this to happen, you just need to do two setups. One important setup is that start URL here. If you see start URL, let me show you edit policy. This start URL, it must be populated, and it's if you see the ID URL here, it's the service provider URL ID. So it must be set up here. Let me show you one more time. One is here, and if I click on edit, I remember I copied this one IDP URL here. Actually, it should not be IDP URL. It should be the service provider URL here. I set up here again. It was not coming here, but then I figured out that I have to do it here also. And if I click here, click on Manage. So one is the place for edit, and one is the edit policies. In edit policies also you have to do it. Even then, if you are not getting this app here, then I would say that go to App menu, and you must make sure that your trailhead here must be visible. This must be visible here. Or other thing is that connected app must be authorized, means has a must authorize user by adding the profile. You must make sure that. So Salesforce also provide this, that if you're not able to see connected app, then it must have start URL, it must be authorized to see it, and it must be marked as visible. So these three things will make sure that it is visible here. Now let's jump into the another flow, which is service provider initiated flow. Only one checkbox is enough to initiate this as a service provider initiated flow. So what you need to do here is just go to your service provider initiated flow and click on go to setup, write domain, and in domain, if you see my domain, just scroll down to authentication configuration. You will click on edit here, and it will gives you an option. See, if you see it here, it is providing you as IDP provider name. You can click on this save, and that's it. So once now you log out here, so if you see here, we are getting another option. Either I enter username password for this org, or I can log in from my another org, like here. Once I provide username and password, I'll be logged into my service provider org. Now, one very important thing to notice, when you will work in your project, you will face a lot of issues where you will get a result into an error, that single sign-on error. Then how to fix that? If you remember, you can have these kind of errors, but it doesn't tell you exactly what the error is. So what you can do in that case, so if I go here, single sign-on setting provider, and write single sign-on setting, and if you see, we will make use of this SAML assertion validator. Now what it needs, if you see, this is already pre-populated from our previous when we try to log in from when we clicked here, then the last assertion value is already there. You can click on validate, and if there's any error, then it will show you over here. If the certificate is not right, if any problem is there, then it will show it here. Another way is you can add an extension. I've already added an extension, SAML tracer. So if you have it open here, and if I click again, I try to launch it, trailhead like this, I'll open this tracer again. So if you see, these informations are already coming in when we are trying to log in. But the one which we are interested in, it will come with the SAML button. Let me see. So what I'll do here is I'll try to go to that org trailhead and log in with this. So if you see on my SAML tracer, I got this SAML here. I can click on this here. I can go here. I can copy this, and then I will just go to service provider. Here I will go to single sign-on setting and click on here, and I will paste it here. So if you see, once I clicked on validate, if it has any problem, then it will say that signature certificate problem, signature in the response is not valid. Then you can fix that by providing the right signature, right certificate. Hope you like my session. Thank you, and please subscribe to my channel if you like my video. Thank you.